I've been asked to talk a little bit about COVID and implications of it and things like that. First, a little bit about me. Um, I'm 64 years old. I taught at South Dakota State University, SDSU, here in Brookings for 33 years, 28 of those years full time. I'm semi-retired from there. I still will teach if they have a need. I mostly taught electronics technology courses. If you look behind me, you can see I'm a bit of a nerd. and computer support classes. And I still do computer support in, servers and things like that, mostly on a consulting basis. I'm also a polio survivor. I had contracted polio at the age of 18 months because I missed out on the vaccine. It was in short supply at the time, and I didn't get vaccinated. So I want to talk a little bit about, what I should say too, that I spent most of my life walking on crutches with braces, and I am currently confined to a wheelchair. I really feel some kind of a connection between COVID and polio in many ways. The viruses themselves are very different, except for both seem to kind of like the summer a bit, although COVID is more year-round, it appears, but it didn't abate during the summer like most flu-type viruses normally do. Whereas polio was really a summer virus and really was the most infectious and problematic during the summer months. Both attack very specific areas, and there's some other similarities too. During the polio epidemics, very often people were in quarantine, self-quarantine, or were forced quarantine to the point where areas where there were large outbreaks, they would actually close off areas of a town or a whole community and not allow anybody in or out and things like that. So it really was a bit different. Polio didn't have the ability to move around quite as much because mass transportation really wasn't there. And one of the things, we talk about today, this herd immunity thing. Herd immunity had 2,500 years to get rid of polio, and it never did. In fact, polio just kept getting worse with each epidemic would be worse than the previous, often doubling the numbers or more. And it was a very big problem until Jonas Salk came up with the polio vaccine. And that vaccine really put us in a place to learn a lot about viruses. And Jonas Salk, more than just his gift of the polio vaccine, which, by the way, was a gift, he never patented it. And when asked about it, he said, "How would you patent the sun?" And it really was that important on many levels because we learned that how vaccines could work and how a killed virus vaccine, which is very safe, could have very long-term protection from the virus. And so that gives us a lot of hope about what might happen with COVID and a vaccine. But also we need to be careful and make sure it's thoroughly tested and vetted and peer review and all those kind of things that need to happen before we get a vaccine that's available to us. And what gives me some hope is one of the laboratories that's working on a vaccine and is very close to having something available is the University of Pennsylvania Salk Laboratories, where Jonas Salk developed the polio vaccine. And, I guess it was different because it was easier to get people to see that it was an important thing with polio because it really affected children, whereas COVID affects adults and older people. But Also, though, something to note is that one of the more vulnerable groups are the disabled. Now, I don't happen to fit into that. Polio doesn't raise my vulnerability to contracting other viruses. In fact, it may be the other way. But many in the disabled community are very vulnerable. And if it gets into some of the disabled areas and places that have disabled, it can be devastating. Also, of course, into the nursing homes and things like that. One of the things that we also, we talk about, things like the masks and stuff like that. Oh, masks in particular, I really do believe that they're helpful. And even if they're not, it really isn't that big of an imposition upon us. And it should be something we would want to do to help our neighbors to be better. And it's just a stupid mask. It's not like we're asking you to spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair. And I really believe that there are some positive things coming out of this. We're learning a lot about, getting along maybe, uh, doing things by ourselves. Another thing of note is, as a disabled person, have spent a lot of my life preparing for social distancing, and so to me, it's kind of like when I see everybody complaining about it, I'm like, you know what? Welcome to my world. I've been doing that for years, and I just hope that we can work together and find positive ways to get through this and move forward.